Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People have been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me, and yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
Disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and viewer discretion is advised. Today the sauce will be discussing the ongoing legal proceedings of Sean P. Diddy Combs, including analysis of publicly available court transcripts and other relevant material. While some of the content may be graphic or sensitive in nature, it is presented in a responsible manner to provide context and understanding of the case. All discussion falls within the guidelines set by YouTube, which permits coverage of current events, legal proceedings, and public interest stories when done in an educational, documentary, or journalistic context. Please note that commentary and opinions differ from facts and should not be taken as such. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey yo, thanks for tuning into The Source, your source for celebrity news. Alright y'all, today is big. Today is day 9 in the testimony of the Diddy case. And today, Kid Cudi is supposed to take the stand. So, we're gonna find out whether or not Cassie was telling the 100% absolute truth when she says that Diddy went to Kid Cudi's house and blew up his car. So, we're a few hours in and Kid Cudi has just taken a stand. He's rocking a black leather motorcycle jacket, a white t-shirt, and blue jeans. And I mean, according to everybody who's in that courtroom, Kid Cudi seems to have a very laid-back, cool, calm, and collected demeanor. So, he gets up on the stand and AUSA Johnson begins to question him. The first thing she says to him is, "What do you do for work?" And Kid Cudi responds, "I'm an actor and musician known as Kid Cudi." Then AUSA Johnson shows him a picture and she says, "Who is this?" And he responds, "Cassie. We dated in 2011. And then the AUSA asked Kid Cudi who else was she involved with. And Kid Cudi told the Sean Combs. And then she said, "What did you know about their status?" And Kid Cudi responded by saying that her and Sean had some problems, but they weren't dating anymore. So then Kid Cudi sort of elaborated on the fact that he met Cassie in 2008 and then they didn't start dating until 2011, even though they were in the studio working on a project in 2010. But despite what people are saying, they didn't start dating when they were in the studio. As a matter of fact, in 2010, they were just friends, and it wasn't until 2011 that they started to explore a deeper connection. Alright, so next, the AUSA went on to ask Kid Cudi if in December of 2011, the police had to respond to his home. And he was like, "Yes, I had a break-in. Cassie called me about 5:36 a.m. She said Sean Combs had found out about us. She asked me to pick her up, so I did." So then the AUSA is like, "Why?" And then Kid Cudi's like, "She was worried." You know what's hilarious about this? I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny. But it almost seems as if, in real life, P. Diddy really wants to be a character in a Notorious B.I.G. song. Because this whole thing right here is reminding me of, who the cuff is this? Paging me at 5:46 in the morning, crack of dawning, now I'm yawning. Wipe the cold out my eye. See who's this? Paging me, and why? I mean, really, isn't that what it's given? Anyhow, the AUSA goes on to ask, what was her demeanor? And Kid Cudi says, she was stressed out and worried. And then the AUSA says, where did you go? And Kid Cudi says, the Sunset Marquise. And then she's like, why? And Kid Cudi's like, I thought it was safe, off the radar. Alright, so everybody out there, for all y'all who don't know, a lot of this case is taking place in New York, but this particular incident is taking place in LA, because that's where the Sunset Marquise is. Alright, so after that, the AUSA asked Kid Cudi who else did he speak to that day, and he said Capricorn Clark. He said that when she called him, she was near tears, and basically she was like, listen, Diddy's in a car near your house. And as soon as those words came out of Kid Cudi's mouth, Diddy's team was like, objection! Alright, so Kid Cudi also said that Capricorn Clark told him that Diddy and an associate were inside his house. And they're like, yo, how you know? She's like, because Diddy forced me to come with them to the house. I'm outside waiting in the car. Now, after Capricorn Clark told Kid Cudi that Diddy and one of his associates had the nerve to be inside his house, Kid Cudi said that he called Diddy on the phone. And he was like, what's up? And Diddy was like, I'm at your house waiting for you. And Kid Cudi was like, are you inside my house? And Diddy was like, I just want to talk. Alright, so essentially, Diddy has now left his Notorious B.I.G. bag and now he's on his Jodeci bag because he's like, come and talk to me. I really wanna meet you. Can I talk to you? Okay, so Kid Cudi says that when he arrived at his house, he noticed that all of his security cameras were turned in the opposite direction. Oh my goodness, Diddy's off the hook. But this just goes to show you just how calculated and manipulative this dude is, because he made sure to have his security guards scale up them walls to turn those cameras around just so no one would be able to catch him on film. I mean, really, think about that mindset. Diddy's over there thinking 10 steps ahead. Alright, so then the AUSA asks, what happened when you arrived at your house? And Kid Cudi's like, listen, when I got there, it was apparent that somebody had been in my house because all of the gifts that I had for Christmas were open, including a couple of Chanel gifts that I bought for my family. And even though nothing was taken, you could tell that somebody had went through all my stuff. Kid Cudi also said that when he got home, his dog was locked in the bathroom, which was odd because he lets his dog roam. So somebody else put my dog in the bathroom. He also said that after the incident, his dog that he had for 3 years just wasn't the same because his dog had the jitters. I mean, the dog was traumatized. So after that, the AUSA asked Kid Cudi once again if he had any security cameras inside his crib. And Kid Cudi said yeah, he does, but he found out they weren't working. So then the AUSA asked Kid Cudi what his reaction was to all of this. And Kid Cudi said that he called Sean Combs back up on the phone because he was ready to squabble up. And Diddy picked up and he was like, yeah, I'm on my way. But then Kid Cudi said that he stopped and he paused and he thought about it for a second because he was like, wait a minute, I don't know what type of time Diddy's on. And I also don't know whether or not he's packing, and I also don't know how many dudes he has with him. So instead of running a fade, Kid Cudi called the cops so that he would have a police report about the incident. Now, I'm assuming, and this is just an assumption because I wasn't there, but I'm assuming that if P. Diddy was in fact in the vicinity, when he saw those cops arrive, he must have told his driver to cut the Yui, and he went back to his evil lair, because when the cops got there, Diddy was nowhere to be found. Alright, so then the AUSA jumps ahead and she's like, the next time you saw Cassie, where was it? And he was like, in Connecticut. And the AUSA was like, how was she? And Kid Cudi was like, she was depressed. So then the AUSA was like, did Diddy ever contact you again? And he was like, yeah, he hit me up. And she was like, he hit you? And he was like, nah, he hit me up. And she's like, what do you mean? He hit you? And he's like, he hit me up. He called me. Anyhow, next, the AUSA asked Kid Cudi if him and Cassie eventually broke up. And he was like, yes. And then she was like, and what about your car? Kid Cudi testified that one day he was away from the house, and the person who babysits his dog called him on the phone and was like, Scott, your car's on fire. Now, Kid Cudi said that when the whole thing went down, he was actually away because he was over at one of the relatives of one of his ex-girlfriend's house. But when he heard what happened, he quickly rushed home. So then, the AUSA takes out a stack of 6 photos and she shows them to Kid Cudi. And she's like, what's this? And he's like, that's my Porsche. And then he goes on to elaborate that these are the pictures of his Porsche after somebody blew up his Porsche with a Molotov cocktail. So then the AUSA goes on to ask him who took these photos, and he says that his associate Chip took the photos. And then she goes, what's this? And she points to the photo, and Kid Cudi says, that's the hole in the roof that they made in order to put the Molotov cocktail into my car. After that, the attorney was like, what was your reaction to having your car blown up? And Kid Cudi was like, what the cuff? And then Diddy's attorneys were like, objection. I mean, really, what in the world are they objecting to? The what, the or the cuff? So then, the judge in the courtroom was like, listen, come on, y'all, you can't object to the what, the or the cuff. So he was like, it's overruled. And then, they took a break. So you know what that means. We're gonna take our favorite commercial break too. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'm gonna catch you on the other side.
Make your next freak off your best freak off with Ciroc Ultra Premium Baby Oil Vodka. Don't drink it. It's baby oil.
Introducing Diddy's Baby Oil by Johnson & Johnson. This oil is so smooth even P. Diddy had to stock up, 1,000 bottles to be exact. Perfect for those freak-off moments or whenever you need that flawless glow. Grab your bottle of Diddy oil today at Walmart, Target, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and wherever you get your essentials.
Alright, we're back. So as you know, Kid Cudi is still on the stand, and the AUSA asked Kid Cudi, was the damage to your car there before the dog sitter called you? And he was like, no. And then she looked at Kid Cudi, and she was like, do you think that this was an accident or was it intentional? And he said, intentional. Here's the thing. We all know darn well that P. Diddy blew up that car. But the question is, how do you prove that P. Diddy blew up that car beyond a shadow of a doubt if you don't have any forensics? I mean, for real, if you don't have a trail of baby oil lace prints all over that car, how can you really prove that it's P. Diddy? Outside of that, it's gonna end up being he say, she say. Unless Capricorn Clark gets up on that stand and confirms everything that Cassie and Kid Cudi are saying. Because then, and only then, would the jury be able to use Capricorn Clark's testimony as circumstantial evidence to support the fact that P. Diddy did in fact commit this arson. So essentially, even though Kid Cudi and Cassie have given us vital pieces to the puzzle, it's gonna take Capricorn Clark to put it all together. So then, the AUSA looked at Kid Cudi and she said, "Where did you last see Miss Ventura?" And he said, "At the Soho house." I reached out to Sean Combs and told him that this was getting out of hand. So then, the AUSA was like, "Who set up the meeting?" And Kid Cudi was like, "D-Rock and my manager." So once again, you have D-Rock doing a whole lot more than just security. And you got Kid Cudi sitting over there like, "Listen, this dude is out of control. He done broke into my house, he done traumatized my dog, and now he done blown up my car. I gotta talk to this ninja." So then, the attorney asked Kid Cudi, "What was Mr. Combs doing when you arrived at the Soho Hotel?" And Kid Cudi said that Diddy was standing up looking out the window with his back turned to him like he was a Marvel supervillain. Oh my goodness, I can just see it now. The diddler actually thought that he was standing there and this was a Batman movie and he was the Riddler. My man was standing over there like this.
So tonight, it's gonna be a special night. Everybody's so serious, but we're about to go to Club Love. Club Love! If you can't dance or you can't pop, you gotta stay at home. You know the Joker don't play that, baby. Welcome to Club Love. Hard.
Oh my goodness, there are no words. So then, Kid Cudi says that Diddy turns to him and he's like, "You knew that was my girl and you supposed to be my homie." And Kid Cudi responded by saying, "I thought y'all broke up." So then, Kid Cudi goes on to say that Diddy sort of switched up and he was like, "Yo, you thirsty? You want some water? You want some water?" According to Kid Cudi, Diddy asked him if he wanted some water twice, and he turned it down. But y'all know darn well what Kid Cudi was actually thinking. He was sitting over there like, "Hell no, I don't want no water from you, you freaking psycho." Listen, I think Kid Cudi was smart for turning down that water, because for real, what it sounds like to me is that Diddy may have put something in that water and he was trying to get Kid Cudi to a second location. But that's my personal opinion, because I'm sitting over here wondering, why in the world is Diddy so worried about whether or not Kid Cudi is parched? Listen, let me know down below. If somebody just blew up your car and then y'all are sitting down and y'all are having a meeting and they keep asking you, "Do you want some water? Do you want some water?" Are you drinking that water? Let me know in the comment section below. And while you're down there leaving a comment, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. But as you know, my personal opinion is neither here nor there, so let's get back to the facts. Kid Cudi went on to say that Diddy was acting weird, and then the AUSA asked him, "What did Cassie say?" And she said, "We fell in love, things happen." After that, the AUSA asked Kid Cudi what happened next, and Kid Cudi was like, "I asked him about my car. I was like, yo, what's up with my car?" And Diddy was like, "I don't know nothing about your car." Yo, have you guys noticed that P. Diddy is the master of gaslighting? And for all you people who don't know what gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where a person causes someone to question their own sanity, their memories, and their perception of reality. It's a tactic that often leads the victim to feel confused, anxious, and unable to trust themselves. According to psychologists, people gaslight for a number of reasons, but the central motivation is to gain power and control.
A made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It never happened. It never happened. This one was invented by a writer. Not this time. It never happened. It's false. It never happened. It's a fake. It's fiction. It's an urban legend that never happened.
Alright, so after P. Diddy was over there playing dumb about his car, Kid Cudi said that he just basically walked away. The AUSA then went on to say, "Did you ever see P. Diddy again?" And Kid Cudi was like, "Yeah, I saw him later again at the Soho house." And she's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Diddy came up to me and he told me that he was sorry for all the BS and everything that happened." Let me tell you something. Kid Cudi is a much better person than me. Because if Diddy blew up my car and then I saw him again and he walked up to me acting like he was Anita Baker, talking about, I apologize, I would be like, cuff your apology, ninja. Where's the money for my car? And then we'd be duking it out in the parking lot. Because we're not talking about a Matchbox Hot Wheels car here. We're talking about my real car. And back then, a Porsche used to run you a good $160K. So ain't no way that after you done blown up my $160,000 car that you're going to roll up to me in a restaurant talking about, yo, my bad, sorry for all the BS. Are you kidding me? Kid Cudi should have turned around and backslapped P. Diddy's black behind so far back that when he got up off the ground, he was rocking that red shiny suit that he was rocking next to Mace back in 1997. Alright, so I digress. Next, Brian Steele got up to do the cross-examination, and he started by saying, I want to ask you about your Porsche in 2022. And Kid Cudi looked at him and he was like, it was 2012. And Brian Steele was like, oh, my bad, I apologize. And then continued on. You got a call about your car being damaged in 2012. Were there any surveillance or photos? And Kid Cudi was like, no. But he did add that his dog's babysitter did send him some photos of the car. So then Brian Steele goes on to say, were you aware that there was DNA on the car and that DNA came back from a female? And then the prosecutors were like, objection. So the judge was like, rephrase the question. And Brian Steele said, were you aware that there was DNA done on the car? And Kid Cudi said no. So essentially what Brian Steele is doing right here is trying to imply that one of Kid Cudi's ex-girlfriends might have jacked up his car. I wonder if Brian Steele knows that in the black community, most salty ex-girlfriends usually go for the tires. They don't go around making Molotov cocktails and blowing up your whole car. I mean, that right there is some mobster-ish. I mean, for real, think about it. Most black women, when they get salty, they might key up your doors, they might break your windshields, they might like jack up your Pirellis or your Michelins, but they're not blowing up your car with a Molotov cocktail. Additionally, who's to say that the print that you got off the car was from the person who actually blew up the car? Do you know how many people touch cars? Aside from that, who's to say that Diddy's not wise enough to have a henchman be a henchwoman? Now, what they should have done is already run that print through CODIS so we could know exactly who it belongs to. So Brian Steele went on to say, you and Miss Ventura broke up. Why? And Kid Cudi was like, it just ended. So then he was like, you told the court that Miss Ventura played you. And he was like, yes. And he was like, played you and had no clue. And he was like, yeah, played me and had no clue. Alright, so essentially, the defense is trying to make it seem as if Cassie is mad shady because when she was dealing with Kid Cudi, she didn't tell Kid Cudi that she was still dealing with Diddy. But the court has already revealed that when this happened, her and Diddy were officially on a break. So I don't even understand why this is important, especially since we know that Diddy was seeing like 2, 3, 4 other women. Anyhow, Brian Steele resumed by asking Kid Cudi, in 2011 you went on tour, 65 locations? And Kid Cudi responded yes. Brian Steele followed up that question by saying, at that time, would it be fair to say that Sean Combs was considered to be an icon? And Kid Cudi also said yes. And then Brian Steele flipped the script because his next question was, you and Miss Ventura, you guys had an actual relationship? But before Kid Cudi could respond, the AUSA jumped up and was like, objection. So after the AUSA was basically like, we not doing that today, Brian Steele pivoted and changed directions and started asking Kid Cudi about the break-in again. Brian asked, so you believe they left your front door unlocked? And Kid Cudi said yes. So, no forced entry? And Kid Cudi said no. So then, Brian Steele basically went on to be like, okay, so somebody went in your house, they closed your bathroom door, they put the dog in it, they opened a few presents, but, you know, it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened. So then he goes on to say, I'm not trying to belittle what happened to you, I'm just asking. So then, after Brian Steele threw that little bit of shade, he continued on with his train of thought. And he continued on to say, so you called Sean Combs? And Kid Cudi said, yeah. And he's like, was he calm? And Kid Cudi was like, yeah, it was calm. So he was like, so you went to see him and you weren't afraid that he was going to have a weapon? And Kid Cudi was like, I don't know, I couldn't call it. So then, Brian Steele went on to say, so you consider yourself to be a strong person. That's how you categorize yourself. And Kid Cudi responded, he was like, yeah, but this crossed the line. And Brian Steele was like, okay, so Miss Ventura told you she was abused? And Kid Cudi said yes. And Brian Steele said, but she never told you that she was actually abused, true? And Kid Cudi said she did not. And then Brian Steele said, so you loved her. Tell me if I'm wrong. And Kid Cudi said, I did. And then Brian Steele said, you got played by the same person who played Mr. Combs, Cassie Ventura. Wow. Alright, so after Brian Steele had his little court moment right there, he continued on. And he said, in the 13 years since, have you ever been notified in California that there's been any more action on his car fire? And Kid Cudi said no. And then Brian said, did Miss Ventura have multiple phones? And Kid Cudi was like, I don't remember. So then Brian Steele broke out an exhibit and was like, pow, almost like, I gotcha. But Kid Cudi was like, if I said it, I said it. After that, Brian Steele asked Kid Cudi if he knew what a burner phone was, and Kid Cudi was like, it's an untraceable phone. And then Brian was like, the trespass, you call it a break-in. Miss Ventura told you that she'd given your home address to Mr. Combs. And Kid Cudi was like, yes, in the morning. At that point, Brian Steele called it quits, and he was like, no further questions, thank you. Now, after everybody heard Kid Cudi's testimony, a whole bunch of people jumped on social media like, oh my goodness, Cassie mad shady. How's she gonna give Diddy Kid Cudi's address? Listen, let me tell you something. Are you not following this trial? I am very sure that Diddy hit Cassie with the Guantanamo Bay treatment to get that address out of her. Because no woman on the face of this earth has ever woken up at 4:30 in the morning and rolled over to give one man the next man's address. Okay, so where does that leave us? Personally, I think that Diddy did it, but I can also be fair and impartial, and if I was a juror, I would be saying, even though Kid Cudi got up on that stand and gave very strong testimony that supports Cassie's claim that Diddy smoked his car, there's still a missing link in the chain, because at the end of the day, you gotta place Diddy at the scene of the crime. I mean, you gotta prove that there's a little puddle of baby oil right next to that car. But the prosecution says that there's a witness, and also you gotta remember that Capricorn Clark can actually place Diddy at the scene of the crime. So we're just gonna have to wait and see, because as it stands right now, this is very strong, but it's not quite strong enough to convict Diddy of arson, because you have to remember that they have to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's the legal burden of proof required to affirm a conviction of a criminal case, which means the evidence presented and the arguments put forward by the prosecution to establish the defendant's guilt has to be so clear that they must be accepted as a fact by any rational person. If the jurors or judges have no doubt that the defendant is guilty, or if the only doubts are unreasonable, then the prosecutor has proven that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So, what Brian Steele did so masterfully is he threw in those prints, and he said the prints are from a woman, which opens up a form of doubt, because now we gotta wonder, did Kid Cudi have an ex-girlfriend who jacked up his car? Because the same way that Diddy could have been salty about Kid Cudi being with Cassie, there's always the chance that there's a woman out there that was salty about Cassie being with Kid Cudi. So, with that being said, in order for the prosecution to convict Diddy on an arson, they're gonna have to find somebody somewhere to get up on that witness stand to extinguish that little seed of reasonable doubt that Brian Steele just planted. And I know, somebody out there right now is like, oh my goodness, Sauce, let me find out you can be fair. I can be fair when it comes to Diddy when I want to. Listen, let me know down below. What do you think about Kid Cudi's testimony? And also, do you think that this was enough to convict Diddy of arson? Or do you think we need a little bit more? Let me know in the comments. And while you're down there leaving a comment, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to The Source, your source for celebrity news. Peace.